Hey guys, I'm Liquid Fire. Thanks for joining me again tonight for another episode. So this time we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different. So in the past we've done some of the mechanics deep dives, we've done some of the mission madness, the mechanic minutes, things like that. The 1 5-star slam, which was great. To get the wolf, that was awesome. Makes me very happy. But tonight we're doing something a little bit different. So we had one of the subscribers reach out, Real.Presets, and ask if I could put together a video explaining how to find herds once you spook them. So we're going to try to do the best we can to kind of put together a few tips, and I think we'll call this like quick tips or something. It's certainly not going to be nearly as in-depth as some of the other videos have been. There's just not that much to get into when it comes to finding spooked herds, to me. There may be more that other people know, so please, guys, jump into chat and add opinions and ideas if you have some great techniques. Certainly, always glad to learn. But for this video, this is really trying to kind of reach out and answer the question on tape, I guess, as it were. But keep in mind, everything that I do in the videos is in Hunter, so I'm not playing hiker or adventure ranger either. If I'm changing into something different, I'll definitely let you guys know so you know kind of what to expect. But everything I do pretty much is going to be in Hunter, and that's kind of where the tips for how to find stuff is going to come into play. So when we're spooking things, there's only a few things that I really try to do. One, first and foremost, is I try to use the camera as much as I can to have an idea of where they're going. So if I spook something, whether I'm shooting or just run up onto them, I bring up the camera and try to watch where they're going. And we'll get into that when we get down here. I found a herd of red deer in here. Let me flip my HUD back up. So I found a red deer zone down here, and we're going to take a look at them and see if we can't spook them and find them and try to showcase some of the techniques. So I don't know, I've got these two places marked. These are their sleep zones, so I don't know which one they're in. Hopefully they're in this closer one and we don't have to go very far. But we'll take a look at them and see if we can see anything, get an idea if they're down here. Looks like we could have some right there. Yep, looks like they're right there. Alright, so that works out. So let's go ahead and get rid of this marker. Alright. So what we'll do is we'll walk down to these guys and kind of get a good look at them, try to figure out exactly where they are. Because that's the first thing. If you're trying to figure out where something goes, you first need to understand as best you can where they come from. So in Hunter, generally things run around 300 meters. It's not exact. Sometimes it's further, sometimes it's less. If you're spooking them multiple times, they seem to go further each time. I don't know how far that goes in terms of getting longer each time, but sorry. They do seem to go a little bit further, like on your second spook. So, let's turn Hunter sense on here. So, they look like they're about where we expect, maybe a little further back. So, see if we can get some eyes on them. Where are these 8x? This should be my 10x. What in the world? Alright, well, I guess we won't be shooting anything. So it looks like where I jumped over to a free hunt on this particular save, I've never done a free hunt here. So I'm just using an old save file because it didn't really matter what we were using. So I guess in this case, we will just be looking at things. So I can't spook them with the gun, we'll have to run in on them. Alright. That'll be alright. Normally, whenever I shoot, I like to watch them through the scope, but we'll just watch them through the binoculars. That's not a big deal. So this should be our red deer over here on the other side of this hill. Alright. So it's going to be tough to get a good mark on them because of where they're at, but we can take a look at where they are in relation to this road, and we can kind of see, looks like they're where the second turn is and up in here. So if we take a look at the map, see if we can find that road. Wow, that's gonna be tough. Well, it looks like it's pretty close to where we have that marker. Maybe a little further. Let's just go ahead and get in a little closer. We'll crouch down. I'd like to get eyes on them, and I don't even have the giraffe tower to use to get up any higher, but we'll sneak in a little bit. But what I like to do is to be able to mark where they're at. So it's the same concept as when you shoot, you mark where the blood is so that you know where to go. That's kind of what you want to do for spooks in general, is mark where they start from. Because if, for example, say we spook these guys right now, if they are 150 meters away, if they run due south, I'm not going to be looking 300 meters from where I'm at. I want to look 300 meters from where they started at. So for me, that's going to be about 450 meters away if they were to go straight south. And the same thing if they're running east or west, you need to get to that starting point in order to find the right direction that they go. So the first step is to figure out where they're starting from as best you can. Now obviously if you can just see them the whole time, then it doesn't matter so much. You can figure out where they're going, and there's a few tips I'll give with that. But let's see if we can get a little bit closer here. Well, they're not alerted anyway. So if we take a look, we can see here is where that road branches off. You've got this road that curves around and goes back, and they're about even with this. So if we take a look at the map, it doesn't look nearly the same. But we know that the road curves back, so they're more in this area here, I think. So about 150 from here. We'll just try to sneak in and get eyes on them. Have to be a little more cautious now. I want to spook them, but I want to spook them on my own time, not when they're ready to. Got some pheasants over here playing around. Now that I don't have a gun, we'll see a 5-star. Oh my gosh. How's that for irony? Just about to say we'll see a 5, and sure enough, right there is one. Alright, well. Good thing it's a save that doesn't matter, I guess. Of course, now I'm kind of in the back of my mind thinking, when did I make this save? Do I still have a chance of that 5 still being there? Not really too worried since it's a... wow, we got a 4-star too. I've worked this herd over pretty hard, I guess, and got some good... or this habitat over pretty hard, I guess, and got some good genetics going. Or at least a lucky herd. Anyway, we're not here for pheasants, we're here for reds. So let's see if we can't get up here to these guys. Yeah, so we're about right. We got that marked at 100. And they're calling it about 100. So yeah, that's a pretty good mark. So we've got a good starting point. Knowing that, I'm going to go ahead and just walk in on them and spook them. And what we're going to do is this first spook we're going to watch with the camera. And what we're going to do is try to look for any landmarks we can use to figure out where they're going. Because if they run out of sight, we've got to have some place to kind of look towards. Alright, so there they go. They're spooking now. Alright, so they're heading, looks like south, southwest maybe. So if we look where they're going, there's a ridge line here. There's a giant tree here. So that's a really good, that tree stands out by itself. That's a really good indicator. Alright, so they're crossing the road. And there's a couple trees here where the water is. Okay, so that should be easy. That should be real easy. So we know they started way back up here. So somewhere around this area. And they ran down this way towards this giant tree. And they're just past it towards these two giant trees. So that's kind of our landmarks. We got this ridge, we've got this tree, we've got the road, we've got the creek over here, and we've got these two trees. And they're basically straight in line between these two trees and this big tree. So these guys are going to be a breeze to find for this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk all the way down to where we get eyes on our landmarks, which is actually not very far. So here's that big tree. And if we look past it, these are those two trees that we were looking at in the camera. And right here is the herd. So it doesn't get much easier than that. So let's take a look at how far they actually went. Alright, so they started from about here. And they went straight to this tree. And then over towards these two trees and are down in the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that I'm right about those trees. Yeah, so there's those trees. And they're in the field beside the water. So we're looking directly at them. So we're probably, I'm going to say what, maybe here? So it looks like that's too far to the right. So let's go this way. Or I'm sorry, to the left. Well, now I'm too far to the right. So about right here. Alright, so that's not much better, but yeah, we need to be a little further to the right, but not much. So it looks like they roughly went, well, we had a reading, so they can't be further than 450, but it looks like they went about 400 yards this time. So let's walk on down towards them. And it may be that the reds go a little further than, say, whitetail or something. I'm not sure. I've not done a ton of research on that. But we'll take a look here and see what we got. What I normally do is start looking at about the 300 meter mark, and they're usually around there. And when you're using the camera, you can see hundreds of yards in other directions. So like here, if they were at 300, say maybe 300's right here. You would see them if they're at 400, that seems to be here, 500, they'd be here. So you would still be able to see them. The key thing is to have your landmarks so you know where to look. And we're going to keep on going towards them. Now if we take a look at where they're at now, so they're here. It's possible when we spook them, because I'm going to spook them again, it's possible that they end up in this area along the border, because that's only, what, 350 meters past where they're at. So if we spook them and they run up into here, that changes some of the things that they can do. So if we're spooking them along the border, especially if they're closer, they will sometimes run off the map. But what happens is they'll run off and they'll come back and they'll keep on going. So it's not like they run off the map and disappear, despawn, wrap around, come around on the other side or anything weird like that. Normally they just go and come back. Something else that can create problems for you is big bodies of water. Now I know we've all seen the deer and stuff go submarining and disappear. It does happen. But usually what happens is that they actually hit it and refract off at an angle. So let's suppose that we're starting right here and we spook deer and they run to here. They don't normally hit this water and then just go along the side. They don't normally do that. What they normally do is hit and then reflect off and go off in a different direction. And it may, be something like that, or it may even turn back almost the direction they were coming. But the thing that's confusing for some people is that they don't hit and just follow it. Most of the time, it's possible that they could hit the border, like say they hit right here, and then kind of go more like that. So, I mean, you'll sometimes get that, but most of the time they seem to hit it. They'll kind of jiggle around a little bit in that area and then take off in a different direction. It's the same thing when you're up in the mountains. So let's take a look up in this area. If you spook something in here, they can't go up some of these banks, okay? So let's look down through here. They can't go up these banks. They'll run up the hill, and they'll sometimes go sideways. They'll sometimes come right back down. They'll sometimes kind of turn back on themselves and turn again. When you get into the mountains, that's when I seem to find the most sporadic type of spooks where they're running. But you can also use it to your advantage. So suppose you're over in this area and you spook something and they run up the hill. You know they're not going to go over top of the hill. Okay? It's going to funnel them. If you're coming from up here and they're running, say you spook something here, you know that they're not going to go over the hill and be up in here. What they're going to do is stop somewhere in this area and change directions. And generally, they're not going to turn back on you. So you can assume that they're probably going to run somewhere like this. And the distances here may be off, but assume that we're here and this is about 150 meters to where the red is. So we start here, it's 150 here. They're going to run at least another 150 meters, so however far this was. So they may stop down in this area. Or if it's 400, they may end up crossing over and getting into here. But that's kind of the key thing, is it's not that they're only going to go, for example, if they're going to go 300 meters, it's not that they're just going to go here and stop because they can't go any further. They're going to continue on and do roughly the 300, or looks like maybe 400 for reds. That same distance, it'll just be different because they made turns. So kind of keep that in mind as well. You can't just say, well, I'm at this point here, say we're at this red. They're going to be exactly 300 or 400 meters away. No, they may be much closer, but they will have traveled that distance. Because if you look in a straight line, this same distance would stop down in this area. All right, so that's just something to keep in mind. The distance it's cumulative. It's not from your exact location or from their starting location. It's something that it's just how far they're going to run. Think about it in terms of run time. They're going to run however long they run, and the distance that they cover, 300-400 meters. So let's go on to these guys. And this time I'm going to spook them, but we're not going to use the camera. We are going to use our ears, and we're going to use our hunter sense dots to try to get an idea of where they are going, and use the same concepts as before. It looks like the reds are running about 400 meters, at least down here in the fields. So we'll look at that 300 to 400 meter range and try to take the direction that they're running and figure out where they're likely to stop at. So let's see if we can get good glass on them. Are they still down there? Did they wander off? No, they're still there. I just can't see them. I have to get a little closer. Well, I still can't see the boogers. Now, obviously, the best bet when it comes to spooking animals is just to not spook them. Oh, did we spook them already? No, that was just them making noise. So when you're approaching a herd, one of the things to watch out for is when they alert, make sure you stop. Okay, so these guys haven't alerted or anything yet. But if they alert once and you stop and give them plenty of time to calm back down and approach calmly, you're perfectly fine. But if you alert them a second time, most of the time what they're going to do is be pushed away as if your scent cone's pushing them. So they get slightly pressured and they want to get away from you. And what's going to happen is they're going to get pushed just like the scent's pushing them. We're not going to do that. But that's something to keep in mind if you're struggling finding something that you've spooked. If you are alerting them, they are going to continue to push further and further away. So you've kind of got to keep that in mind as well. It's the same thing. If you're approaching something you've spooked and your wind is blowing into them, they're going to be that much harder to find because your wind's going to blow them away. When your wind isn't going to, but your scent on the wind is going to push them away. Alright, so we know where these guys are. We're going to throw a marker down right on them. So right about... There's no way they're 350 meters away. That's got to be going across on the other side. He's 145. He's 150. There we go. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and walk right into them and spook them. And all we're going to use is our binoculars and their sound bubbles to try to figure out where they're going. So if we take a look at our compass up top, we're heading almost southeast. There's the spook. All right, so they're heading down and to the right. So, okay, so they're going way further to the right. So they're heading more like a southwest direction at this point. So they're probably heading along this tree line. Let's see if they make any turns. Alright, so they're out of our ear range, so we know that they're over 300 meters at this point. So we know they went somewhere this direction. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to where they were standing at. And that'll be this one that's 65 yards or meters away. Alright, so this is going to be our starting point. Alright. So we're here. Now, they weren't exactly where that red is. They were heading in this general direction. So they were heading south. So if we take a look at the map, the good news is we're not likely to see them run off the map or anything like that. They're going to be running down this waterway. So let's try to find about 300 meters. So let's start taking a look here. That's way too far. I do that all the time whenever I go from a small map to a big map. I totally misjudge everything. I'd say that's probably a pretty good estimation of where they're going to be at. A starting place to look for where they're going to be at. So what we did, again, is we went to where they were and tried to look at the direction they were going and, sorry, hit the wrong button. Try to kind of mark on the map where we think they've gone. Now, if there were big mountains or something, then that could help us kind of further figure where they went. But there's nothing here that's going to control them except this border, and they definitely weren't heading toward the border. So let's head down this way with our camera and see if we can get eyes on them. Which it's going to be really tough with all these trees down here. We're not going to see anything, I don't think. We're going to have to get a little closer. The good thing is the wind is in our face, so we don't really have to worry about the wind pushing them. And we know that we've got a few hundred yards to go, so we can walk normal speed for a little while. I'll get down to around 250 or so, and then take another look with the camera to see if we can find anything. It'd be nice if they went into a big open field where we could see them, but of course, they're not going to make it easy when you try to do something on tape as a demonstration. But, you know, that's good. This is real. This is the type of thing that you actually run into. So, let's see what we can find. Alright. So, looking about 250 out, it's going to be around in this area, I think. So let's see if we see anything where they've turned. So what I like to do is look about where I think they're at, and then start looking to the sides to see if they've turned any. And I don't see anything over here to the right, which is unfortunate, because that'd be a nice open shot if we were looking for one. And if we look over here to the left, let's see if I've got this zoomed in. Oh, we're at 70. We can get closer. I don't see anything anywhere at this point, so we're going to have to get a little closer before we can get eyes on them. And changing the field of view actually does help. If you're just scouting around, having a real wide field of view is really handy when you're using the camera. But when you're trying to find something, especially in woods like this, where you don't have a lot of open area, taking it down to a tighter field of view where you can get more magnification can actually really be helpful. Same thing with getting a good line of sight. If you're just using your binoculars and stuff, getting a little bit of elevation, getting into these lanes between trees and stuff can really make it easier to help find stuff. Alright, so don't see anything here. And something with a lot of the animals is once you spook them, they get that agitated state to where whenever you find them, they're just kind of pacing around. Not all of them do it. Reds, for example, I don't think I've ever seen them really pacing around agitated like say the wolves or something do. But that's a really good indicator. If you see a herd doing that, that's a really good indicator that that's the herd that you've spooked and were chasing. I don't see anything in here yet, so oh wait a minute, there they are. There they are. So they turned towards the end and went up on that hill a little bit. Alright, so now let me back this field of view out a little bit. So they're right here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to back out and try to find us some landmarks so that we know where to go to find them. So we know they're up here in this hill, which you can't hardly see them now, but they're up here. We've got the creek turning out. We've got a big open area here in front of it. There's no really great landmarks other than the creek itself. So let's take a look on the map. So we've got the creek turning here. So it looks like what they did is went down this way and then cut up here. So we're probably, we've got these fields, probably looking somewhere in this area maybe. I think they're further to the right. I think it looks like they're right in this area maybe. Yeah, right there they are. Alright, so if we take a look at where we started at, we spooked them from here, and they went down this way, and then turned, and went out this way. But our total distance, so I'm not going to do the math on it, but the total distance from here to here is a little bit shorter than the path that they would have actually taken. So it seems like they went something like that. But again, we were looking in the right area. We thought that they would stop somewhere in here, I think is where it was. And they ended up stopping over here. So, same concept, the right general area. So we were looking, if we bring the camera up, we were, oh, I don't need to do that. We were looking in here. And they were actually just over here in these woods. Right here. So, very close. And that's really all there is to it. There's not a lot more advice that I can give other than to use your camera if you have the opportunity to and want to. You don't have to. A lot of people prefer not to use it. But if you're struggling to track stuff that's been spooked, use the tools you have available. I certainly use a camera. Not abashed to say it at all. I have it. I use it. I love the camera. I use it more to actually find stuff to go stalk than anything, to be honest. But if you spook something, it's a tool. Use it. But you have to learn how to find stuff using it. Because if you just follow something and you're not paying any attention to the landmarks, it's real easy to get into a state where you don't know what direction you're looking anymore. It's real easy. So like if I look around, I assume the sun's over this way. It looks a little brighter. But it's if I'm looking over in this direction, I don't know east, west, north. I don't know which one's which. You know, it's tough to keep up with that. I'm assuming based on the terrain that I'm looking kind of north now. But when you're chasing something, watching it through the fields and it's turning and all that, it, the key thing here is to look for landmarks. Anything that you can use to figure out exactly where something is super helpful. You know, this giant tree, the little village over here, the house and the hut, even these hay bales and stuff, the mounds here, roads, creeks, anything that you can use to help figure out where something is located in relation to where you are, that's huge. And of course, pay attention to your sounds. And remember, when you're looking at the sounds, so if you have the bubbles, it's not necessarily where the last bubble is that they are, because once they get out of your 300-meter range from you, you're not going to see those bubbles anymore. So you need to pay attention to the direction that they're heading as much as you can based on the bubbles. And I find it's always easier to go to where they spooked from and start looking at your distances from there. And again, I start around that 300-meter mark, and that's generally how I'm able to find them, is to go from the starting point, the direction that they're going, mark my 300 meters, and once I start getting closer, pay attention. Do you hear stuff making noise? Like these guys just made a noise in the woods. Do you hear stuff making noise? Do you see something that's agitated and walking back and forth, pacing? You know, those are big clues. But yeah, I don't know what else to add. So Real.Presets, I hope that maybe this covers a little bit and gives you some ideas, some things that you can think on and expand on a little bit. Everyone else, please jump into the comments and give ideas, tips, techniques. I'm always happy to learn new ways to do things, and certainly don't think that I have mastered every way to track down a spooked animal. So if anybody has anything great, throw it in the comments. You know, let's share the ideas, get the information out there. That's what I'm all about, is sharing as much knowledge as I can, and that means I have to learn as much as I can. So I'm always open to hear new ideas. All right, guys. I think that covers it. Again, not a super long one. Certainly not a mechanics deep dive type of thing. This is just a real high level couple tips for tracking down spooked animals. All right, guys. Y'all have a good night. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it very much. God bless and happy hunting.